You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to the Options Playbook, the program where we break down cutting-edge option strategies and explain how you can incorporate them into your own portfolio. Whether you're looking to grow your capital with some offensive maneuvers or protect your investments with defensive plays, you can find them all in the Options Playbook. The Options Playbook is brought to you by Ally Invest. Anything mentioned today is for educational purposes and is not a recommendation or advice. Options involve risk. Please refer to ally.com/invest/disclosures to review additional risks involved with trading options. Securities offered through Ally Invest Securities LLC, member FINRA and SIPC. Now, let's open the playbook and get started.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time once again for Options Playbook Radio. Going to do something a little bit different here on the show. If you can't tell, I'm not your usual host, no, Mr. Overby. Still enjoying some extended family vacation time here at the start of the new year. Hope you guys are all enjoying and celebrating a festive new year as well as we kick off the new year of 2021 in style, at least here on OPR. So we knew we couldn't leave you hanging without an episode, so we thought, what better way to kick off the new year than by looking back and crunching the numbers and seeing what you guys determined were the top 5 most downloaded, most streamed, most listened to episodes of Options Playbook Radio for the mad, nay, the insane year that was 2020. Did your favorite episode make the list? Your favorite strategy? Let's find out together. All right, coming in at number 5 on our top 5 countdown spectacular, we have, appropriately enough, the Options Playbook Radio 300th episode spectacular. That came out all the way back on February 15th of last year. Seems like just yesterday Brian and I recorded that episode, but it was back on February 15th. On that episode, we celebrated a pretty impressive milestone for any podcast, let alone for this one. Not many shows survive to the grand, ripe old age of 300, yet OPR made it there. And so what better way to celebrate that than by answering a whole bunch of your questions. That's exactly what Brian and I did as we huddled up to answer your questions like, for example, should the fig leaf really be called the Speedo? We talked about that on the show. What should you do if you call trades move against you? Why aren't options free to trade just like stocks? What is Brian thinking back then, February 15th, about Bitcoin options? Very different scenario than it is almost a year later. And what portion of your portfolio should you really be allocating towards hedging strategies? A lot of great stuff on that episode. The 300th episode spectacular, your number 5 episode of OPR for 2020. All right, coming in at number 4. I think I see a theme some of these remaining episodes here. Number 4, episode 329, entitled Our Mailbag Overfloweth, with questions about Tesla and Apple. That came out on September 2nd of last year. I think you can figure out what the heck we were talking about on that episode. Brian and I actually huddled up again. I made it into the top 5 a couple of times here this year. That's exciting. We talked about how Tesla and Apple callers may perform after the split and what folks were up to over there at Ally from an options perspective, and how a broker could indeed go about changing or establishing their own requirements for options trading in terms of level 1, level 2, level 3, all that good stuff. Your number 4 episode of the year. All right, coming in at number 3, we have OPR 320. Boost your income with holiday covered calls in Apple. You see what I mean by a bit of a theme here? It's a few recurring names. This came out on July 1st of last year. So far, we have a good smattering. We have February, we have September, and now July. This episode, this was just Brian flying solo as he usually does. He first broke down a ratio butterfly spread in United Airlines, and then he kicked off a holiday, this time July 4th, covered call in everyone's favorite option to trade these days, Apple. All right, and coming in at number 2 on our top 5 countdown here, we have OPR episode 328, collaring the big splits in Tesla and Apple. Oh, I think I see a pattern here. This came out on August 27th of last year. First off, Brian kicked off the episode by talking about a spread in Dollar General that he put on around earnings. And then, of course, the meat of the episode, talking about Apple and Tesla, their impending stock splits, which were coming the following week, and what you could do with that. And he actually put on that collar trade that we broke down on our episode that came in at number 4 on our countdown, the Apple collar. So Tesla and Apple, big themes on the countdown this year. All right, that means it's time for the number 1 most popular episode of Options Playbook Radio for 2020. This was episode 324, Buying Put Spreads in QQQ. If you had asked me what I thought would be the top of the list, I probably would have guessed something along the lines of Apple and Tesla, not a put spread in the Qs. But nevertheless, that's where you find ourselves for the number 1 episode of last year. This came out on July 29th. And obviously, Brian talked about the Qs, but first, before he did that, he dove into a diagonal spread on eBay. Going into earnings, he kind of breaks down how that performs. And he talks about the madness going on in the FANGs and how you could potentially, maybe if you were a little bit concerned by some of the valuations out there in those FANG names, he thought maybe it was time to look at a put spread. And so he did that in the Qs. So there you have it. That's our number 1 episode of Options Playbook Radio for 2020. I want to thank all of you out there for downloading and streaming and subscribing and listening live. And when I got Brian to do live shows, that is, which is infrequent. Hoping to have more of those in 2021. And of course, for sending in your questions. Keep those questions coming. I know Brian really does love it. And thanks to everyone out there for being a part of the network last year. We know it was a trying year for everyone, so we really appreciate all the effort you guys put in to listen to our shows, to rate, to review, to join live, everything else you were able to do. We're looking forward to creating more great content for you guys, and we hope you guys are looking forward to listening to more. And we'll see you back here next week with another episode of Options Playbook Radio.
The Options Playbook is brought to you by Ally Invest. Anything mentioned today is for educational purposes and is not a recommendation or advice. Options involve risk. Please refer to ally.com/invest/disclosures to review additional risks involved with trading options. Securities offered through Ally Invest Securities, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.